honest with yourself. How often do you think about decorating your villager houses? When you've been working on your island for a while, it's all too easy to forget about interior decorating. As a result, you end up speedrunning the DLC to unlock everything you need to get going, but then you realise you have no idea how to make each house stand out, and you don't even bother with your villager homes. Decorating each of the villager homes adds a perfect finishing touch to your island, and it's important to not neglect these if you want to make your island completely come together. If you're struggling to know where to start with creating perfect homes, these simple tips can help you make every villager house fit perfectly into your island's theme. Although interior decorating is possible to do in the base game of Animal Crossing New Horizons, the DLC takes this to another level. The 2.0 update introduced us to Happy Home Paradise, also known as HHP, which is an extension to the base game that expands on the decorating abilities introduced in New Horizons, with the focus being on interior design and creating yards for your villager homes in a completely separate part of the Animal Crossing universe called the Archipelago. Despite interior decorating being possible in the base game, the tools are rather simplistic, and if you want to make your villager homes stand out in your eventual Dream Address release, you may want to purchase the DLC and complete the 30 vacation homes you need to unlock every feature to use on your own island. Some of the unique things you can unlock to use on your island include recipes for pillars, counters and partition walls, and a polishing cloth which lets you add special effects to items to give them a little bit more pizzazz. If you're into island design, then purchasing the DLC is a good option, and you can use these vacation homes as a way to practice designing with some different ideas to get a direction on what you want to create on your own island. So if you've bought the DLC, how do you make homes which look special? The villagers on the archipelago seem to ask for some weird suggestions, and being honest, when you head to their newly selected vacation home and open the boxes which are the items they'd like to use, it can seem like an odd choice to try and make them work into your plans. These pre-selected items are often loosely tied to the theme the villager has in mind for their space, and it's up to you to make these items fit into the vision of what they want for their vacation home. The biggest thing that I find helps with making stunning interiors is to think about how to make your vacation homes look as realistic as possible to fit back into what the villager wants as a style. This sounds a bit crazy when you're working on a jungle build for a villager and for whatever reason they've asked for the glowing moss jar to feature into their plans, but hear me out. When you're designing a home for a villager, it's all too easy to make them all look the same. Shove a bedroom here, a bathroom over there, and maybe a living room over here, and there you go, the vacation home is done. But when you work on a theme that's a bit out there, you test the limits of your creativity, and it helps you think of design in a new way to bring their vacation home to life. When you open the boxes that contain these pre-selected items, the first thing I would do is take a look at each item in turn. Are there any colours that you think you could use with them? What sort of story would you tell for the villager who is living there? How would they use the space you've given them, and how can you make each of these items work into the space and design you're conjuring up? When you've asked yourself these questions, you'll start to see how you can create a space which is realistic for the villager in that moment, and you can build out their story with the items they've selected alongside what you have in your inventory. Although it's tempting to shove down a load of items alongside what they've requested and call it a day, it could be more effective to think about how realistic it would be for those items to be in that setting. For example, if you're working on a cafe or an ice cream parlour, it makes sense to have snacks and drinks on the tables to show how that home is being used as a business, but you wouldn't exactly expect to find a pair of binoculars and a bug model there, unless you were wanting to tell a specific story. As you're planning out what the space is going to look like, one thing you may want to consider is how much space you're going to need to get everything in. Let's be honest here. If you're someone who decorates in Animal Crossing, you love a good bit of clutter. You end up filling every single free space to get the perfect look to your villager's home, and then you realise there isn't enough space to work with everything, and you get stuck on every item. In Happy Home Paradise, you can change the size of your villager's homes, which start at 4x4 tiles, which is slightly smaller than the villager homes you get on your own island, and it is quite small when you're trying to make stunning spaces. As a basis for decorating homes, I would recommend starting a vacation home with 6x6 tiles and adding more in later if you absolutely need to. How much space you're going to need depends entirely on the items you're using, what size they are, or whether or not the villager has space to walk around their homes and use them properly. Trust me, the last thing you want to do is fill every possible spot and then find you can't actually speak to the villager to end the vacation home. If you're trying to replicate the same thing on your island, you will struggle a bit because you can't change the size of the villager homes. However, if you're looking to get some practice with designing a space, keep your vacation homes to the same size as the normal homes, which is 6x6 tiles. This way you get a feel of what items are going to take up a huge amount of space and which items you can use to add extra details without committing to doing all of the houses on your island and having to revisit them later if you want to change them up. Take an honest look at the size of the home once you've picked it, and ask yourself if you've got the space to use things like pillars and partition walls to separate out different spaces in the home. You need to factor in what space these take up as well, and ask yourself if the villager can move around their house freely, particularly if you're planning on adding in different types of rooms like a bathroom or a bedroom. I'm planning on making a video at some point talking about how you can make different types of rooms stand out in your villager homes. So if that's something of interest to you, subscribe to be notified when that does go up, and leave a comment below letting me know what your favourite type of room is to work in an Animal Crossing New Horizons vacation home, and maybe I'll mention it in that video. Now that you've picked the sizing of your villager's home and you've started building out what the vacation home is going to look like, the most important thing to consider is what theme or story you're going to be telling to make your villager's home stand out. I've spoken about themes a lot when it comes to island design, and there's one big reason as to why this is so important when you're designing any spaces, whether they're inside or outside. It helps you keep a build on track and everything looking cohesive. Yes, you can put down any items you want to fill a space, but if there isn't a consistency between the items and the visual aesthetics you're going for, it won't look quite right. If you're fairly new to designing interiors, the best place to start is going to be Happy Home Paradise because it's a great way to get a feel of how everything works. The villagers on the archipelago start with offering you a theme or design that they would like for their home, and they recommend you 2 or 3 items that they want to be included in the space. You can use this to get new ideas for your own themes and play around with different items to create that story for yourself. When you get to a point where you feel more comfortable, you can then start creating homes for yourself without needing the villager's prompt as a guide. But if you are just starting out or you don't feel as confident in creating your own spaces, use this guide as a template for what you can create in a villager's home. Eventually, you will feel more confident to work on villager houses on your own island and remodel them to fit into the overall island theme. But if you want to make sure you're making homes that look good, it's worth practicing on HHP vacation homes to get a feel for how everything works. And if you stick with using a 6x6 tile grid, that's a great way to get used to smaller spaces that you will have in the villager homes. So now you're working on the main part of the build and it's all coming together nicely. You know where the furniture is going, the walkways look good, and everything can be accessed. But it still feels like there's something missing. The chances are that you're missing some small details which will help you finish it off perfectly. The larger furniture items are used to direct the flow of traffic and give the overall vibes to the theme you're creating behind the home. But without the small details, it doesn't feel like the space is being lived in. There are different ways that you can add these small items in. Whilst you can just grab everything that's under the miscellaneous tab and put them in any random location or on any free surface that you've got in the build, placing these with more thought and care can just make the room feel more realistic overall. Think about what the villager is going to be doing in their home and pick items which make sense for each of the small parts you've made to elevate the look of the villager's home. If you're creating a cafe, you'll want some food on the tables, but maybe you also want some drinks in there to show different groups of people and how they're using the space. Likewise, if you're working on their yard, maybe drop an item on the walkway to show the villager is more forgetful or clumsy in some way, and make this item match back to the personality. For example, a lazy villager might have just dropped a piece of candy, or a normal villager might drop a book. These small touches can complete a space, and it's worth taking your time to flick through the catalogue to see what items you have that can be used to finish off a build perfectly. If you want to get the most out of your time designing homes for villagers, then you're going to want to have a lot of items to work with to create spaces which match both the villagers you've invited in and the vibes you're going for. The way this works for designing homes for your villagers is a bit different to designing spaces on your island. When you work on your island, you'll be running backwards and forwards between your storage and the build, grabbing items and placing them down slowly so that you fill in spaces and gradually make your island come together. With designing villager homes in both Happy Home Paradise and on your own island, you don't have to worry about the physical items. Instead, you pick items to place based on what you have in your catalogue. Your Animal Crossing catalogue is a list of items that are in the game and is available for you to see at any point in the Nook shopping app, either on your Nook phone or at the ABD and resident services. It's not a list of every item in the game though. For every player, this list starts blank, and as you hold items that you've either crafted or bought from the shops or traded with friends, they're added into your catalogue one by one. It's from this list of items that you can find the items to use in designing villager homes. So if there's an item you want to use that you either haven't crafted or held yet, then it won't be available for you to use in homes. As a result, it's important for you to take the time to fill out your catalogue with items you want to use before you go into decorating villager homes. You can do this by learning DIY recipes and crafting the items you want to use, buying everything you see from Nook's Cranny or from Wardell and the Archipelago, or by playing and trading with friends or visiting a treasure island and picking up different items to use in builds. Over time, you'll see the list of items you have available grow, and this will help you out when it comes to designing a space. As an added bonus, it doesn't matter which colourway you've held of an item. When you design homes, every colour option is available for you to use on that item, so just focus on picking up one version of an item you want to use in that space. Creating spaces for your villagers is often the last thing that you think about, and when it comes to finishing an island, sometimes you just want to get it over and done with and just not do them. But actually putting in some time and love to model the houses for your villagers is a great way to add some additional polish to your island. Getting to this point can be tough if you're struggling to know what to do with your island, but if you watch this video next, you'll learn some great things you can use to improve your island design and create a stunning island that people will remember. And I'll see you over there.